Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too, as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. This is from one of my workshops from Waukesha, Wisconsin, back in '03. Wow, so this goes back almost 20 years ago. This is the kind of stuff I was pitching to people. First of all, I would start with something like a story from the Buddha, that the Buddha reputedly picked up a handful of leaves in his hand and said, "Oh, monks and nuns, are there more leaves in my hand or more leaves in the forest?" And then they all responded as like one chorus, "Oh, more leaves in the forest, your venerable sir." He says, "Well, what I know compared to what I'm going to teach you is like the leaves in my hand compared to the leaves in the forest. But yet, what I'm going to teach you is enough to help you get liberated if you follow the path, follow the Dharma." So I don't like to divide people into what they call new souls and old souls. It's kind of a weird way of thinking about spirituality, that somehow an old soul has been around a really long time and they're less involved in the daily round and the cares of the material plane. But I always thought that that was kind of a weird way of kind of creating one-upmanship, whereas a new soul is somebody who's so enthralled with the material plane that their attention is not so much influenced by any kind of transcendental considerations. And yet, I always thought that, well, if you're grounded on the material plane and you're dealing with what I'd call first chakra self-preservation things, like taking care of your family, what's not spiritual about that? So I never thought that that whole idea that a new soul who's involved in supposed materiality is less spiritual. So I don't make that distinction between the new and the old souls. Just a metaphor for which way your attention is focusing. And of course, when you do that, it expands your fielding repertoire right away, because you're no longer trying to deny or avoid or escape from the material plane. That becomes the primum material, as they say in alchemy. The gunk of your life is what becomes your path. The soul grows through its own pathology. So in a certain way, you have to give up excuses about why your life is so filled with preventing you from going ahead rather than providing the means for you to go ahead, because the way is through, not around. So what you learn then is that ego death comes from ego strength, not from ego weakness. So you have to build yourself up and then give that up and realize what a burden that is to carry that around. And of course, one of the ways you do that is you learn to integrate the shadow. You look at all the darker things in your life. Of course, there's an endarkenment, just like there's an enlightenment, and there's much to be found in looking at things that we normally avoid, deny, or are dimly lit so we don't see it as well. And then when you do that, you start to open up, and you learn the difference between instruction, where you've been taught through academia and school to pack in information and parrot back the answers, so you get more high marks, right, on the measuring tablets there, and that supposedly that will serve you well later on in life. But education really comes from leading forth from within the individual, helping them to follow their own lead. I used to call it plucking the strings of sympathetic resonance. You try this and you try that, and you find something that really vibrates with you, just like when you pluck a string on a piano. The other strings vibrate in sympathy with it. So when you discover that, there's a potential for you to follow. And you go down that track and you see whether or not it's really yummy or yucky. And then you learn to fine tune that way. And it's as if every time you find a string of sympathetic resonance, it's as if a thread from the other world pokes its head from the invisible into the visible. And you pull on that thread. And when you pull on that thread, you create the tapestry of your life. And there's many twists and turns in the rip-roaring roller coaster that we all have to face. But at different times in your life, you feel like, oh wow, this is like a vignette, it's over. And you take that tapestry off the loom and you put it to good use. And usually it has to do with serving other people and bringing your gift or bringing your love to share so everyone can see what you're embodying and how your unique way of expressing spirit. So workshops to me are not workouts. I just try to give people a lot of tools to help them fuel the fire, ignite the fire of their spirituality, and take it wherever the Holy Spirit will lead them.